What is happening, everybody? Welcome back to my channel. In this video we will look into how you can integrate Supabase in your Next.js project. So without wasting any more time, let's get into it. We will begin by creating a new project on supabase.com. So let's go to supabase.com and click on sign in. If you have not created an account on Supabase, please go ahead and do that. For me, I already have an account, so I'll sign in. If you're signing in for the first time, Supabase might ask you to create a new organization. I have already created two organizations, so I'll select one of them. And then once you are in the organization page, I will click on new project and then I will add a project name. For me, I want to name it as Nextjs-Supabase, but you can name it however you want. I will enter my database password, and then we will not worry about the rest of the options like region and other security options. So click on create new project now, and this will create a brand new project under your organization. So now if we go to the project settings and then go to API keys, we will be using this anon, or short for anonymous key, to connect our Next.js project to this Supabase project. So let's go ahead and do that. I'll switch to my cursor editor and let's create a new Next.js project using npx create next app at latest and give it a name. So I'll name it as Next.js-Supabase and hit enter. I don't want to use TypeScript. Yes for tailwind, yes for source, yes for app router, no. Okay, so our project got created. Now let's open that project in your editor. So I'll do cursor Next.js Supabase, and there you have it. So this is a brand new Next.js project. Close this window. So the first thing we want to do is I want to use shared CN in this project because I like the components that shared CN comes with. So let's go ahead and set up that. So I'll open new terminal, clear, and I'll do npx shared CN at latest init. Let's select neutral base color, or you can select whatever theme color you like. There you go. So now we have finished setting up shared CN. Now let's install all the components that we need from shared CN. So I'll do npx shared CN at latest add label, input, card, button, sonar, and tabs. These are all the components that we will be needing. So let's add all those components. Now we want to install a library that Supabase provides that makes it easier to connect to your Supabase project. So let's do that. npm install at supabase /supabase dash js. So there is a typo, I forgot to add a. Hit enter. And now we have pretty much installed everything that we need to move forward. So let's go ahead and start coding. Let's begin by creating a .env file in our project, and we need two variables from Supabase to connect to our Supabase project. So let's do next underscore public underscore Supabase URL and next underscore public Supabase anonymous key. Now let's go ahead and get these two values from our Supabase project. So I'll go back to my project. You can find anonymous key under project settings and then going to API keys. I'll copy this and paste it here, and then I will go to data API. This is also present under project settings, and copy the URL of my project. Hit save, and now I will go ahead and start my Next.js server. npm run dev, and there you have it. Our server is running at port 3001. Yours might be running at 3000 or some other port. First thing I want to do is I want to remove everything that Next.js comes with by default. So I'll go to source directory app page.js and remove all this content. Hit save. Now let's go to our browser and we have a clean slate to work with. So we want to begin by creating an API client that will help us make API calls to the Supabase project. So I'll begin by creating a API folder under source and then add a new file in that called client.js. Let's begin by importing create client from Supabase library and then initiate that create client function. We want to pass two attributes to this function. One is the Supabase URL and the second is that anonymous key. So I will do process.env.next underscore public underscore Supabase URL and process.env.supabase anonymous, and then let us export this client so we can use it in our components. So now we have created our API client that we can utilize to make API calls to the Supabase project. Now we want to create a component called auth provider, and we will wrap our whole app in that component. This component will act as a authentication checker, and we will be able to use this context anywhere in our app to know whether the user is logged in or not. So I'll go ahead and under components, I will create a new folder called context, and under that I will create a file called authprovider.js. And I want this component to be a client component, so I'll declare use client directive at the top. And let's begin by importing create context from React along with use state and use effect. We also want to import the API client that we just created, so let's import that as well. Now let's create our context. I will declare a const called auth context and just call create context with null. Next, let's create auth provider with children as prop, because we'll be wrapping our whole app in this component. So now we need to declare two state variables in this. One is user is equal to use state null, and loading to check whether we are in the process of making API call or not, and set its initial value to true. Now let's use effect hook, in which we will check whether the user is logged in or not. So pass it a function, and a dependency array will be empty. So what we want to do is client dot auth dot get session, and this is a promise, so we can call then on it. Let's destructure it data, and let's set our user here, data dot session dot user or null, and then let's set our loading to false. Now this code will check whether the user is logged in or not, but we want to keep listening to auth events as well. Let's say if the user is not logged in and then they log in later, we want to make sure we know of that event so we can store our user in that state variable. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's declare a const and destructure value as data listener, and this will be equal to client dot auth dot on auth change. This will accept a function, event, and session. And now we'll go ahead and set our user here as well. So I'll do session dot user or null. Now this way we will keep listening to auth events, and every time user logs in we will know, and we will set the value of this user state variable. What we also want to make sure is when our app gets unrendered, we want to stop listening to auth events. So let's return a function from our use effect and do listener dot subscription dot unsubscribe. This way when our app gets unrendered, we will stop listening to auth events. I'll hit save now. Now next we want to return our auth provider. So I'll do auth context dot provider and return children. We also want to set value on this, and the value for this will be user and loading. Now let's go ahead and export both context and the auth provider from this component. So I'll do export auth context and auth provider. So now our auth provider is ready to be used. Let's go to layout.js and wrap our layout children in the auth provider. First I want to remove all this because I want to convert this component into client component. Remove class names and remove this import. Use client, and now let's import our auth provider and wrap this children prop in the auth provider. And that is pretty much it. Now we can use our auth context anywhere in our app. But what I want to do is I want to declare a custom hook that we can use throughout the app. So I'll create a new folder called hook, and in that I will create a new hook called use auth.js. In this hook, let's import use context from React and auth context that we created earlier, and create a const called use auth. I will declare a const called context and call use context and pass our auth context to it. Now what do we want to do is, if there is no auth context, let's throw an error saying use auth must be used inside auth provider. This is just extra step for security, but you can ignore it if you want. And return context. Let's export our hook now. Export default, use auth, and hit save. Now we can use this hook anywhere we want to use the auth context. So first thing I want to do is on my home page, I want to check if the user is logged in or not. And depending on that, I will either redirect them to a private page or secured page or render login sign up forms. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's first convert this into a client component and now import our use auth hook. Now we'll get user and loading from use auth. Now we want to check if the user is logged in or not. So we'll do if is not loading and user is there. We will redirect the user to secured page, which we will be creating later. So here I want to use router hook from Next.js. So let's import that. Use router. So if the user is logged in, let's redirect them to a secured page. Router.push to dashboard and return null. Cool. But if the user is not logged in, we want to show them a login or sign up form. So let's do that. So what we want to do is inside this div, I want to check if loading, then return h1 loading, else return login form, which we will create now. Let's just check our app to make sure. I'll hit refresh and there you go. You see that loading shows up because we have not logged in. Then we show login form. Now let's go ahead and create a login form so we can allow users to log in. So now let's go ahead and now create login and sign up form. So under components, I will create a new folder called auth, and under that I will create a new file called JSX. This will act as a container for our login and sign up forms. Let's create another file called login.jsx and one more file called signup.jsx. Let's initiate a shell components to begin with. So I'll use a shorthand here and for sign up as well. And inside auth.jsx, I'll import tabs from at components and UI. Along with tabs, I also want to import tabs content, tabs list, and tabs trigger. Let us also import our login and sign up components. Great. Let's initiate our auth component and return tabs. Let's add a prop called default value, which will be equal to login. And inside this, let's add two tabs, tabs list and tabs trigger. First one will be login and add a value to it. So value for this will be login and add one more trigger, sign up, and value for this will be sign up. Cool. Hit save. Let's just export this component for now and go back to our page.js in the root of app and import our auth component. Great. And return auth instead of just saying login form. Let's quickly take a look at our app and we have login and sign up triggers. Great. Now let's add tab content. First one will be login, value will be login, and then let's add one more tabs content, value will be sign up, and we want to sign up component inside this. Great. Let's go back to our app. There you go. Now we have our two tabs and we are rendering login and sign up components in that. Now let's go ahead and create login and sign up components. Now let's start by creating a sign up component. So in this, let us start importing some of shared CN components that we will be using here. So I'll start by importing card component from components /UI/card. Along with this, we also want to import card content, card description, card header, and card title. Let's also import input label and button. One more thing I want to do is I want to use a toast component from shared CN. So let us import toast from Sonar, and what we want to do is we want to initiate the toast component in our layout.js. So let's go ahead and do that first. Here I will import toaster from Sonar and simply render it. That's all. Now let's go back to our sign up and start creating our form. So what I want to do initially is create a card container. Then let's add card header that will have card title called sign up and card description. Enter email, password to sign up. Perfect. Let's hit save and quickly just take a look. When I go to sign up and we see our title and description. Now I want to increase the width of this card is currently too small, so let's first do that so it looks a little better. So I'll go to my auth.jsx and add some tailwind classes, w-full, and here grid w-full grid column 2. Now this is too wide, so let's limit the width to 400 pixels maybe and see how it looks. Yes, much better. And add some margin to it, 100 pixels, a little more, 150. Perfect. So now our card looks much better. Let's go ahead and add form fields to our sign up component now. So I'll initiate card content, and inside this I'll add a form. Inside form I want to add a div and give it a class name of flex column, and gap will be 6. Inside this let's create a new div, give it a class name of grid, and gap will be 2. And now let's add our label, email. Let's add our input now. ID is email, type is also email, it is a required field, and placeholder is just example at gmail.com. Perfect. Let's quickly take a look. So we have our input field added. Now let's add a password input. What I'll do is I'll just copy this whole block and paste it and just change the label to password, type here to password as well, ID to password, remove placeholder. Last, we want to add a button here. So let's add a button, sign up. This will be of type submit and class name will be full. We want this button to take full width of the parent. Great. Our form looks good now. Let me push down the form a little bit more. Cool. So now let's handle the sign up functionality using Supabase library. So what I want to do is on this form, I want to use on submit handler and pass handle sign up. We still have to create this function. So let's go ahead and do that. Const handle sign up. Now this will be a asynchronous function. Let's first prevent default and now get values for our email and password. E.target value and password will be e.target value. Perfect. Let's just console log these to make sure. Let me open browser tools. Yes, perfect. So now let's import our client API client that we created earlier, and let's add one more condition here. In case if user has not added email or password, we want to return, but we do want to show an error message. So we'll do toast.error, please enter email and password. Perfect. Let's try this. So I'll come back here, clear this, hit sign up. Please fill out this form. Is this required? Let me get rid of this. And there you go. We now see our error message. Perfect. Cool. So now the next step is to make a call to Supabase project using the client API client. So I'll declare const data comma error and await client.auth.sign up, and we will pass our email and password. And let's just console log data. Let us also console log error as well in case. So now we have implemented everything. Let's test sign up functionality. So I'll open network tab, can enter my own email address and hit sign up. Perfect. So our API call is successful. Let's go to our Supabase project to see if that user got added. So I'll go to authentication and you can see the sign up was successful. So now what we can do is if if there is data, we can tell the user sign up was successful. They can go ahead and sign in. Toast.success, please log in now. Or if there is error, let's show a error message as well. Unable to sign up, please try again. Perfect. Let me just delete the user from here and test sign up again because I want to test that functionality of showing success message. Cool. Success, please log in now. So now let's go ahead and create a login form. Login form will be very straightforward. We'll just copy all the sign up code and change few things. So let's go ahead and do that. I'll just copy this whole thing, go to login and paste it and start changing few things. Login, change the export to login as well. Change this title to login to login. Cool. And then what we want to change is instead of sign up, we want to do sign in with password. Perfect. And let's change this error message as well and remove this data because there's no point because we'll just be showing dashboard or secured page to the user. Great. Let's try signing in now. Great. I'm getting an error which is good. Let's see. Email not confirmed. So I'll have to confirm my email. We can disable that for now and test our auth flow. But when you're implementing the actual application, you will have to implement for extra security. So we'll go ahead and disable email confirmation for now. But before that, I want to change the sign up to login for our login form. Change this to login and first delete the user that we signed up. And now go to sign in providers, go to email and uncheck or toggle off this confirm email button and hit save. Perfect. Now we'll go back to our app, go to sign up and let's sign up again. Sign up. Perfect. See, now we turned off that option. So Supabase automatically logged user in because we don't have to confirm the email. And we got redirected to our dashboard page because that's how we configured our home page. If you remember, if I go to pages.js, this is the code. So if the user is logged in, we redirect the user to dashboard page. But we haven't created that page. So that's why we see this 404 error. So let's go ahead and now create our secured pages. Secured pages are basically pages that user should not be able to access without logging in. So under our app, I will create a new segment called private, and under that let's create layout.jsx. Let's rename our component to private pages layout, and here we'll use that use auth hook again. Cool. Let's do this. Let's call the hook first and destructure it, user and loading. Now what we want to do here is if the user is not logged in, we want to redirect the user back to home page. So let's do that. So I'll import use effect hook and also use router hook. Import use router from next navigation. And now we will add a if statement here. If is loading or there is no user, just return null. This is required for the initial render. And then we'll have use effect. In this we will check whether the user is logged in or not. Let's pass user and loading as dependencies. And if not loading and there is no user, meaning user is not logged in, let's redirect the user back to home page because this is a private page. Perfect. And just hit save. And now let's create our dashboard page. So I'll create a new folder inside private segment called dashboard and then page.jsx. Let's say this is our dashboard. Let's rename the component to dashboard with D capital. Perfect. So we are getting an error inside the layout.jsx. Let's convert this into a client component. Hit save. So now if we go back, so you see our layout is getting rendered. So let's go back and see. So we are returning layout instead of returning children. So let's do that. And now if I go back, you see here we have, this is our dashboard because the user is logged in. Now let's add a sign out button so we have the whole flow implemented. So on our dashboard page, I will import button. Perfect. Let's change this to h1 as well, and then render button sign out. Now let's import our client again, and then on click, what we want to do is client dot auth dot sign out. And let's convert this component into client component as well. Cool. So we'll refresh. Now when I hit sign out, user will get logged out of our app and we get redirected to our home page, which is where we render our login and sign up forms. Now that I am signed out, if I try to access dashboard, we should get redirected back to home page because our dashboard page is secured. Let's log in again, and I'm logged in and I'm able to access dashboard page. There's an error. Let's take a look what this is. Okay, so basically we want to implement this logic or move this logic inside use effect, so we do not interfere with React's rendering functionality. So let's do that. I'll import use effect and then use effect, pass it as a dependency and move this inside of use effect. We don't need this return, so let's remove it, and that should take care of that error that we were seeing. And this is pretty much it on how you can integrate Supabase with Next.js. If you would like me to create a full stack project using Supabase and Next.js, let me know in the comments below and I'll be happy to do so. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one.